Hi class, this is an introduction to quoting summary and paraphrase. When quoting, you're only going to quote when you absolutely have to, when there's no way that you can restate the original source's ideas. So, if the original wording is absolutely so precise or well said that there's no way you can summarize or paraphrase it, or that the original author's status supports your argument and you need something about their words as evidence of their status. You might want to highlight an author's opinion or highlight the author's contrary opinion, something that goes against yours that you're going to then argue against. Alternatively, lastly, if you're going to discuss the author's specific word choices, then obviously you would have to quote that author so that you can discuss those word choices. With quoting, you definitely want to be wary of quoting too much. If you quote long passages, and frequently do so in your paper, it gives the appearance that you have nothing to say. It diminishes your own authorial voice. And there's this danger that your essay is going to feel cut and paste. I will see this a lot of times, especially towards the beginning of the semester, where students will pull long quotes and each paragraph will kind of consist of one or two quotes from a different source with a couple of sentences of the author's own put in there. And it just gives us that sense that the person went out and did some research on the web and found a few sources and cut and pasted them together to try and create an essay, and all it really is a collection of outside sources. No more than 15% of your paper should be quotes. And this means specifically quotes, not summary and paraphrase. But absolutely, we don't want any more than 15% of that paper to be quotes from outside sources. Otherwise, it feels like it's more somebody else's paper than your own. You should always put the exact words in the quote marks and nothing else there. If you have to add in your own words, we will look at how to do that later on. And then always you want to cite the author and the page number. With summary, summary is getting the author's ideas in your own words. If you do use the author's words, of course, you have to quote them. Summary should be substantially shorter than the original and completely objective. No analysis, no opinion, no slant. You don't necessarily have to keep the same order as the original. You organize the summary in a way that makes it most sense. So if the original is A, B, and C, you might say C, B, and A, and do it in that way. You're not messing up the summary by changing the order around. And then when you summarize, you always have to cite the title and refer to the author by name. Just remember, anytime you're using somebody else's ideas, you have to cite that it's coming from somewhere else, even if you're putting those ideas into your own original words. With paraphrase, paraphrase is a rewording of the original source using your own words and expressions. The big difference between summary and paraphrase is whereas summary is shorter than the original, paraphrase is typically nearly the length of the original, sometimes even longer. You're doing paraphrase when you want to keep all the details and complexity of the original, but put them in your own tone and in your own wording. In paraphrase, you can quote in small sections if you need to, and you always have to cite the title and refer to the author by name because, again, if you don't, it's plagiarism. It's somebody else's ideas that you're representing as your own. Beware. Be very wary of merely replacing words in each sentence of the original, just changing the words and the sentence patterns around. I see this often where students will highlight a section of material that they find on the web, cut and paste it into their document, and then go in and replace some synonyms around. That's not good summary and good paraphrase. If you're going to use the original author's words, you're going to have to quote them. And you will see these kinds of things highlighted in the match overview on our turnitin.com or through Blackboard, through Canvas. So you will see those things highlighted. You always have to cite someone else's ideas. I know I'm getting repetitive about that. That's the big thing with plagiarism. And you always have to explain how new evidence connects to your points. This doesn't You'll see this more as we go through, but always, always, always explaining why that evidence is there that you are citing. Launching sources, and this is just basically how we identify the source. So you always identify who this is, why should I trust them, what's their authority, are they from some big university, are they an expert in the field, that kind of thing. Do not identify the article and book title unless it matters to the analysis explanation. I often see this, a student will say, Bob McKenzie in his article, blah-diddy, 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 blah, blah, blah. And you get like 12 words of this article title that don't matter at all, that mean nothing to whatever you're saying. All you need to say is Bob McKenzie. If we want to see the article title, we will see it on the works cited page. So, identify the source, suggest why the source matters, what is it doing for your argument here, and then thirdly, always remember to vary the launch styles. So don't just keep saying, as Cobb writes, blah, 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 and then 2 lines down, as Cobb writes, blah, 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 and as Bill writes, blah, 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 blah. So you want to vary those launch styles each time. All right, so that is our brief introduction to summary, paraphrase, and quotation.